just 5 months to the general elections, and as of today, only the Convention People's Party, the CPP, has put forward its agenda for the nation, some kind of a manifesto. Now, over the years, the argument that Ghanaians are consistently making electoral decisions based on sentiments rather than on manifestos appear to be gaining ground. So, is this perhaps informing the decision of political parties to delay publishing of their manifestos or results of the reforms they promised? If political parties come out with their manifestos 5 and sometimes 4 months to elections, will that be ample time for the electorate to make informed decisions? Tonight on PM Express, we interrogate the delays in unveiling political party manifestos. We'll be asking the relevant questions of how many Ghanaians vote based on issues captured in manifestos. Are manifestos losing their relevance in Ghana as politicians find teeming supporters from a growing number of fanatics who care less about manifestos? Is the high rate of illiteracy in the country to blame for the lack of issue-based campaigns? Does manifesto quality have any bearing at all on electoral outcome? Is Ghana shifting from the emotions to the rationale, or vice versa? Are civil society groups failing us by not focusing on key accomplishments against manifesto promises? Are we losing the plot? Join us tonight as we get down on manifesto on PM Express. You can post your comments on our Facebook wall, facebook.com/multitv Ghana, and by text 1760. Tonight I'm joined in the studio by Kojo Asante Pumpuni, who is Senior Research Officer at the CDD, Center for Democratic Development. You're welcome, sir. And then also in the studio with me is Alistair Tyrell Nelson, who is PPP Communications Director for Greater Accra. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
We're also expecting to have on the phone line poster and editor of the Daily Dispatch, Ben Epson. Welcome to PM Express. Now, let me quickly come to you, Mr. Kojo Asante. From where you come from as a senior researcher for a civil society group which focuses on democratic development, what signs or signals are you picking about the relevance of manifesto in our body politic?
Well, thank you, and good evening to your listeners. Currently, there's no empirical work, no type of sort of scientific work that has tried to measure, as far as I know, whether or the importance of manifestos to voter behavior, whether or not manifestos have influenced voters in one way or the other. There's a general assumption that the manifestos provide sort of the bill of promise that a party puts out, and based on that we're able to measure whether or not they have delivered. And that's because most developed democracies use manifestos. So unfortunately, there's no scientific basis I can point to say that, yes, it has this amount of influence or not. However, I think over the years, from election to election, manifestos have become quite important, at least in the discourse, as to whether or not parties are developing good manifestos and they are meeting the promises that they have made in manifestos. That has become part of the discourse.
Now, you just said that over the years, manifestos have become quite important in the discourse. Important to which group of people? To every electorate or to select few?
I can't talk about every electorate, but even if you take, say, call-ins or radio talk show call-ins and so on, ordinary people who participate do refer to manifesto promises. The political opponents also refer to manifesto promises to use that as a way to measure whether a government has performed or not performed. And you would also recall that there have been calls, at least from civil society, for manifestos, for parties to develop their manifestos early and to put it out early so that it can promote an issue-based campaigning process. So I think that the chorus, there's a growing chorus for very good manifestos, and also for the manifestos to be released early, so that you can then pick out what the issues are, and that would help people make a choice.
Now, earlier you pointed out that there was no empirical
Yes.
evidence or any scientific data on the effect of manifesto on voter patterns.
Yeah.
Is this deliberate? Why is it that CDD, for example, has not found need to conduct any research in this area?
Well, maybe you took, we are way on top of that. It's one of the areas we want to look at. The areas, for example, you mentioned that there's a lot of scientific research that seems to suggest that voters vote on sentiments rather than on programs, for instance, which also has a relation to the issue of manifestos, because manifestos are actually supposed to convey the policies and programs. So if the science is saying that, well, voters don't care about programs, then you can extend it to say voters don't care about manifestos. But there's a new body of research that is showing that is changing. And I think even anecdotally, those lay people who listen to radio, every day somebody's complaining about traffic, or complaining about education, or complaining about water, sanitation. So it's, for me, I can already see the signs that people do care about the bread and butter issues, policy to deal with security, to deal with the economy, to do unemployment. All of those issues are important to voters. So I see that that for me, I don't accept that is it, but I think there's a more importance for us to look at whether or not there's a connection, that people are prepared to choose their leaders based on those kind of reasons.
Now, to the PPP, Alistair, I'll put it to you. Does your party believe in manifestos?
Yes. Over the years, like before you started, point of correction, we launched our program to be in government when we started this thing. We didn't need a big book to come in a manifesto form or all that. This is our 10-point agenda when we come to power.
So your 10-point agenda,
yes,
is good enough to constitute a manifesto,
yes,
you would say?
Yes, if you read it, it's so involving that when you elaborate on some of these programs, you see that you don't need a big book to come and transform the society.
So the 10-point agenda,
yes,
is your party's manifesto?
Yes, it's the basis for which we argue that we want to be
Is it your party's manifesto?
Yes, it is, if you want to call it so. We have moved away, like we said, we started from 1992. We didn't interrogate too much the need for manifestos in voting at the time. We taught popularity, we use personality. Sometimes they'll even say the man is fair, the man is dark, the man is tall. We didn't talk about the bread and butter issues. But 20 years down the line, we are seeing that there's a lot of work left undone in the rural areas. You travel around from Accra to Asamankesi, sometimes you are shocked that governments have come and gone and there's so much work still to be done. We don't need those big books. All we need is a platform where we can engage everybody in order to arouse them to put their shoulders to the wheel, in order to solve these problems that confront the people. Too much of the ideology.
And you think your supporters are being influenced by this 10-point agenda, by the contents of the 10-point agenda?
Yes, we are
You're doing well.
Yes, it's so simple to read. Anybody who is literate, semi-literate, can go through these things and try to understand. And we have elaborated where necessary, especially on our education policy, on our health policy. Recently, we'll come out with our employment creation policy that will follow. It joins, it works hand in hand. We'll develop as it goes.
Let's go on the line now and speak with Ben Epson, poster and editor of Daily Dispatch. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us on PM Express.
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers.
Now, tell me, have the statistics on electorates voting pattern, is there anything like statistics on electoral voting pattern based on manifestos?
Well, the last time we've done it twice, and it was so disappointing that we've never bothered to put it on any of our questionnaires again. In 2004, it was less than 0.03%. 2007, about the same. what we realized was that the manifesto becomes a good tool for the media, a good tool for discussion. I mean, for example, people who have never bothered to read the manifestos, even though they would have it, people often rely on opponents, political opponents, talking about, you said you do this, you haven't done it. But in terms of somebody picking a manifesto or just reading a manifesto to take electoral decisions, the results were so disappointing.
So with your interaction with the electorates, you would say this is pretty not encouraging, right?
Oh, it is not. It is not. I mean, those who took electoral decisions based on manifesto, no, it is not.
And so what would you say that 5 months to elections, only 2 political parties, from the correction I'm getting from PPP, have come out with a clearly laid out agenda, which I call manifesto. What do you make of that situation?
Well, I think that the parties themselves know within their hearts that they will have to prepare a document that they can point to as manifestos. But I'm sure they'll also realize that along the line that people didn't take a lot of decisions, and that if you don't have manifesto, they'll say, how can it be? Your opponents will use it, perhaps just for propaganda value, that you don't have a manifesto. So they'll put out something. But the issue, if I was listening, I believe it's my good friend Koja Shanti. The average voter will just take a decision on which party he thinks will take off its basic needs, bread and butter, security, and they need to improve their standard of living.
So perhaps you will say that it's the reason why political parties continuously delay the publishing of their manifestos to a few days to elections.
Oh, yes, they just do that, maybe because they know that not many voters take advantage. They'll just leave it late because, I mean, why should you publish it now, especially for an incumbent government or a party which has been in government before? Why should you do it now so that you give your opponents the opportunity to pick holes in them and use it against you?
But is it not?
Pardon?
Is it not unfair, for it to continue along this line? Because there are many more who would love to see a manifesto, read it, and then afterwards make a decision.
Well, I think that is why it's up to the voter to let people know that, look, it's because maybe Party A doesn't have a manifesto, or I didn't get enough time to read Party A's manifesto, that's why I did not vote for it. Because, political parties will react. It's like the media. I've always said that a society gets the media it wants. If you think a radio station is broadcasting or is not controlling its language of people who phone in or is presenting too many programs, don't tune to that radio station. Its ratings will go down and to lose business. Or if you think a newspaper is being too profane, publishing material which can endanger a country's peace, vote with your pocket. Don't buy that newspaper. So if political parties realize that many potential voters, especially the string of voting voters, vote because of manifesto for political parties, they'll take it more serious and be more upbeat and more ready with publication of manifestos.
Thank you very much, Benefson. We'll come back to you later and delve more into these statistics. Thank you very much. So, Alistair, I'll come to you here in the studio. You heard Benefson, and earlier when I asked you whether your party believed in manifestos, you made mention of the fact that you have a 10-point agenda which you take to the people. Now, in your interaction with the people, are you getting the indication that they're listening to you based on the message you're presenting to them captured in the 10-point document?
Yes, and before I go on, I want to react to Benefson a little. I don't think that we should go down this road if in the past people have not believed in scrutinizing parties' manifesto before giving them the nod to come to power. This time, it must change, because going down that road, like I said, you travel from Accra to Asamankese to Odan, there's no hope for the people. Meanwhile, there's opportunity to develop this country. So people are beginning, like you're asking me, are beginning to become aware that they need to hold governments, people who want to go into responsible positions to manage the affairs of the state, to a document, to something that they can share with the person before the person comes to power. For instance, if you look at our platform we have, we take education, for instance, we are talking about free, compulsory, continuous, comprehensive education for Ghana. We know the problems of Ghana's education policy over the period of time. We know it. And you and I know that it takes insightful leadership to solve the problems. The problems are long-term. The solutions are long-term. But we find governments come and go and use short-term solutions.
But the thing is, political parties have come out with manifestos which they've not honored. I mean, in 2008, the NPP and the NDC, the major political parties, all made promises. As of today, there is no empirical evidence for us to gauge whether the promises they made in their manifestos have been honored. All of them have been honored because we have a duty to hold them to task, but we can't gauge that. So,
but you agree with me that at one point in time we changed them. It is because, one, you said they didn't give us a manifesto, so they didn't have a plan in government. And over the years we realized that, look, we couldn't deal with them again, and we changed them. You see, I'm saying that we cannot hide this thing forever, that the people don't believe in manifestos, so we should sweep it under the carpet. This time, we should raise issues with it. We should come out to the fore. I'm expecting Beneficence should use his medium, his paper, to propagate some of these things. The National Commission on Civic Education. Institutions that have been brought to support this democracy must be up and doing, to encourage the population to know more, to learn more. It is up to them to encourage the population, you understand, to come out to probe political parties. People want to go into responsible positions to come and manage our resources, our gold, our diamond, our oil palm, our cocoa. And you don't want to ask the person a question on how he's going to manage these resources to turn out to education.
And they don't have a document to show? Is that your concern?
You need to probe. Even, look, that's what I'm saying. Going around, you take this platform and you try to explain to the people in their local language. You try to relate it to their community. And they see reason that why it is time to look elsewhere. They are fed up. You see, I've said it, Ghanaians don't like reading. You produce big books. You yourself, you cannot meet the timelines. But here's a platform. If you don't even have majority in parliament, you can be in government, in the executive, and still go through with this agenda, because this is a discursive platform. That's what we have been talking about. We have missed it over the years. And we need to come back and, as a state, yes, my Kojo admitted that we need to now get up and say that, yes, A and B, you want to be president, produce your plan for education, how are you going to raise your funds, how are you going to transform the society, how are you going to promote promotive health in order to, people are dying. Look at the national health. We need to sit up as a nation, collective mind, and solve these things. So people shouldn't run away from it. Now we'll raise it. And for me, my idea is to encourage every young person who is literate. You are advantaged to have gone to school. You can read and write. Do yourself some good. Probe and continuously read and find out and see whether they are attainable goals, things they have set themselves, they can achieve within 4 years. Don't look beyond the 4 years. Because I've always said it. You don't need 8 years to transform the society. 8 years is too much. There's a local balance in Chi, if you allow me. They say, if you're not, look, when you move in day one and you correct things, it is seen by your first.
For the sake of our audience who don't speak Chi, what does that mean?
In English, they're trying to say that if things will happen, really, it will happen early in the morning. Yeah. You understand? So if I'm right, and that is it. So that we don't need long books. I'm saying that we need discursive platforms that all will put their shoulders to the wheel, because we need quality education across board, from the rural to the urban area. We need to bridge these gaps. We don't have time to be pulling ourselves, tearing ourselves, leg pulling when there are problems to solve. We need water across the whole country, and quality water we need. So I always want to encourage the population. It's never late. You said 5 months. We have been talking about this platform since about 8 months or 10 months ago. People must still question government in power. We need to see what they'll do in the next 4 years. Because if you listen to them, they are even beginning to run away from some of their basic tenets as a political party in power. So we need to probe, and we'll push. We'll never stop.
Alistair says we need to probe, and civil society groups with a mandate to support our governance must be up and doing, joining us on PM Express. Now, before we went on the break, Alistair said that civil society groups and everyone else must be up and doing in ensuring that political promises that are captured in manifesto documents are honored, and in fact, they're what the electorate expect them to be. But Mr. Kujo-Asante, you have issues with just putting up these things in a book. What's your concern about just coming out with a manifesto?
Well, I think, you know, the discussion we're having seems to suggest that we are talking about just the production of the manifesto as a book and whether or not people will vote on those bases. And I think our experience is clear that it's not necessarily just the manifesto being produced, but the content, what is in the manifesto, which is what media will pick up or society will pick up to discuss whether or not these things are feasible, they are achievable, it can be financed and funded, you know. So it's not, I mean, I would, if you, as I said, if you were to do a survey and you ask people whether they'll vote for a political party that produces a manifesto as against the other, I don't think they are going to make such a sharp distinction. It is the content. What is the political party promising or proposing to resolve the challenges, development challenges that we have? I actually want to make an argument for a more detailed manifesto. For the simple reason that for an accountability point of view, it's too easy for a political party to say, I will improve education. I want to see that political party say that if in 2011 BEC results, 52% of those who sat for BEC results, BEC exams failed. When I come, I'll make sure that that is reduced to 30% or 20%, or nobody will fail. So that at the next BEC results, we can measure whether or not, you know, you have done that. If you are complaining about unemployment, and unemployment is over 20%, or, you know, sometimes we don't have statistics, so we don't know. You can tell us that, you know, I will put 1 million people in unemployment, we can measure. You don't find those kind of details in manifestos that have been done in the past. It is very, very generic. It's very, very broad. So when you confront a politician about whether they have achieved what they said that they would achieve, or what they will say is that I have put $200 million, which is the input. They will never talk about the result. And so they will go about and say, look at how much money we have spent on A, B, C, D. Whether or not the money they spend on A, B, C, D achieved results is irrelevant. So I am actually more interested, because this is the document that we have to go back after the person has been elected and say that this is what you committed to. But there's always a caveat, and just shortly. A political party has to interpret their mandate. If you win an election by 40,000 votes, and this is your manifesto, it means that half of the voting population, or those who turn out for the election, voted for you, or maybe a little over half. You have to be sensitive to the other half that didn't vote for you, because maybe it's not everything in your manifesto that they like. So you have to be if you're winning 60%, 70%, 80%, you are confident that your manifesto was the guiding principle, and then you can enforce it and implement it fully. So even though manifestos are a good guideline, a good frame, you always have to interpret the mandate after the results to understand to what extent you are going to enforce your manifesto.
But the point I've been making all night is that is it not obvious that majority of those who are able to read manifestos, people who are well educated and can read and understand manifestos, they don't constitute majority of people who vote the political parties into power? Is it not the reason that...
Are you suggesting that manifestos
what I'm saying is that people like you and I and the political party representatives who are well educated can take the political party's manifesto, assimilate it, understand the issues that are being raised in it, and get to make informed decisions about more than the illiterates who are...
When politicians travel from Paga to wherever and they stop on the way and they go to hamlets and people's thatch houses and what do you think they tell them? Those commitments about development, about school, about water, about roads, that is contained in it might not come out as your whole economic program, but for the person that is in Tumu, he is interested in some community issues. Yes, we are going to interrogate you on the broader frame of your economic program and so on, and that's a level that, but this is all part of, for me, the manifesto promise, because that Tumu promise might be a subset of your broader program that you have put out. So I don't want us to have this fixation that, that correlation between producing the book and getting election sort of voting numbers exists, because I think it distorts the important role of a manifesto, which I think is a much bigger sort of vehicle than just this very narrow way in which we are looking at manifesto.
Let's get on the phone line, and if we have Benefsin. Benefsin, if you're there, you can hear us. The argument now is that politicians should aim at improving the content of manifestos. Do you share that view? Well, Benefsin is not on the line, so let me come to you, PNC representative Emmanuel Wilson. Your party has a manifesto, does it?
Not for this coming elections. Our manifesto...
So let's get it clear. Your party will not be launching or publishing.
No, we will. Definitely we'll be coming out with a manifesto. Right. You see, manifestos, as we all know, is a document that can be described as a social contract between the political parties.
Contract?
Social contracts or social agreements between political parties and the populace. You call it a social contract because you can't really enforce the content in it in any competent court of jurisdiction. But the only thing you can do is that in every election period, you may be able to say that, look, I'm dissatisfied with the way you implemented your part of the contract, and so I'm voting you out. That makes it a social contract, you understand? But over the past period, what has been so difficult is whether or not individuals really vote based on content in the manifesto. If you recall, 2008, PNC was the first to come out with its manifesto.
But it didn't win the elections.
You see, not only not winning the elections, what we want to ask is whether or not it's made real impact.
You think it did not?
The reason why it should be difficult for me to say that it did or it did not, obviously, if you are comparing it to the result that we had, it didn't make an impact. They didn't make an impact because we believe that the populace or the majority were not so concerned or bothered with what was written in it. A classical example, prior to the 2008 election, I was then the youth organizer. We had a youth workshop, and I brought about all the regional and constituency youth leaders. I congregated them at a point. And during the presentation and interactions, I just picked 2-3 individuals at random. And I asked them, what is PNC's position when it comes to health, as far as our manifesto is concerned? They couldn't tell me. So it tells you that even from within the party, individuals who hold positions in the rest, they are not so much bothered. And it is not just peculiar to the PNC.
But you don't think that this must be changing?
It must.
And as a country, we must be navigating from this end.
It must extremely change. The reason why it must change is that we must be building a responsible government where I can hold the particular party that is in power, hold them based on their words. And the reason why it is becoming extremely difficult for us to get to that stage is simply because the various stakeholders themselves seems not to be interested in it. One, the media. Two, civil societies. Three, NCCE, the constitutionally mandated body to ensure that educations of this nature goes on. And you can just think of the others. But as far as I'm concerned, knowing how strong the media has become in our democratic dispensation, I will put the blame so much and closely on the doorsteps of the media.
We'll come back to you and analyze that statement. We have Ben Epson back on the line. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Yeah.
Now, the argument on board now is that politicians must aim at improving the content of their manifestos. That is, to put more detail into the kinds of promises they make to Ghanaians so that we can hold them accountable. Do you share that view?
First and foremost, they must be able to get the floating voters who matter, to be interested in the manifesto. It's of no use giving all the details that may be necessary when nobody reads it. I usually emphasize on floating voters, but your core supporters will vote for you, whether you have a manifesto or not. So if the political parties can find a way of ensuring that the floating voters, the young ones who are coming, who don't have any fixed political positions in terms of voting, to pick it up and read it, then it will be worthwhile putting in the details. Because honestly speaking, I've always felt that one of the reasons that hitherto the CPP, for example, had not done well over the years is when you say that you believe in the Nkrumah's doctrine on version on Friday wear. I mean, first and foremost, I'll be 55. When Nkrumah was when I was 9 years old. I'm a journalist. I'm interested in politics. There's no way I'm going to go to the library and find out what Nkrumah why Nkrumah said we should have Friday wear on, we should have Ghanaian wear on Fridays. But for example, if you're able to say, look, Nkrumah said this, or the CPP believes that we should do X, Y, Z, because look, if everybody is wearing Ghanaian attire on Fridays, industries will not shut down, will be able to sell more Ghanaian textiles and so on. So the parties must make it easier, must make it in such a way that those who are up and coming, those who want to deal with issues, can easily want to refer to the manifesto.
But Mr. Epson, is this not an indictment on all of us Ghanaians when we begin to trivialize issues that bother on our development this way?
I think that one of the consequences has been not an indictment on us, but that the main ideas of the main political parties seem to, be like the same, that everybody wants to create jobs, better security, health insurance, education, infrastructure. 4, 5, 6.
You support Mr. Kojo Asante's assertion that the politicians are mainly overgeneralizing their contents for these manifestos, right?
Yes, I've not been listening to him. I mean, I only listen when he phoned in, but this is what they do. So if these are the main pillars, all the 4, 5 political parties are saying, yes, this only gives me a free manifesto, why should I open it? Because this is what all of them are saying.
So what do you think the way forward is? Should we remain this way, or we should be aiming at changing?
I have a funny suspicion that post-2012, this is likely to change. Because I believe that whoever loses, the party which will lose 2012, is going to have a kind of damning implosion. That we may end up having a third political party which will congregate, because, for example, if NDC loses and it implodes, those who may lose control of NDC in the internal war will come and join other smaller parties, PNC, CPP, PPP, and the rest.
If MPP loses, it will definitely implode. And those will also come and join. So I'm sure post-2012, we'll have a group of parties, a group of individuals who will form a strong party. As given our demographic, political, electoral demographics, if the two millers are now, if anybody collectively gets 6-8%, we're heading for a runoff. So if you're going to have a collection of young people, a collection of politicians who will form a party which will guarantee 10-15%, and we know that with that party getting 10-15%, you are heading for a runoff. I'm sure people would then want to go to the details, and this is where perhaps manifestos will become important if the politicians and their strategies will be a bit more innovative and get us more different details than the others.
Thank you very much. Ben Epson is editor of Daily Dispatch and a poster. Thank you very much for your time. Now back to the studio. Emmanuel Wilson, you were making a point that the media should take some blame for the lack of interest in what political parties put in the manifestos. Why so?
Not just some blame, but I strongly think that the media should take.
What about civil society groups like CDD?
You see, CDD and co may be doing what they have to do, but currently, the impact of the media's activity in our society is stronger than that of civil society's own. The average Ghanaian tunes into the radio station before the day ends. And what they hear, if you move, like me, across the country to the hinterlands, and you communicate with individuals to be described as illiterate, having been to school, not so much enlightened. And they tell you the kind of premium they put on information they get from the media. You'll be so scared. So everything the media say, they either take it as the absolute gospel fact or nearly absolute gospel fact. What prevents the media from saying that 4 or 5 months to election, we want to educate our electorates on issues, manifesto issues of the various political parties. So this week, a media house will pick the health sector and then invite all the political parties.
And you would suggest that they should compare their manifesto promises.
Let's discuss what the PNC is going to do when it comes to health. Let MPP do the same, CPP do the same, this do them. And when it goes on that, we can do it in languages that the populace will understand. On your platform, it may be English language. The other platform may be Dagbani. The other platform may be something else. And trust me, if we have been able to pursue this, I am sure by now, all political parties will have no option than to come out with their manifestos. One, the only manifesto that has surfaced as far as this election is concerned is that of the CPP.
And PPP says they have a 10-point agenda.
PPP's own, I find it difficult to describe it as a manifesto. Honestly, I really find it difficult to describe it. You see, when we talk about manifesto, we are talking about a document that contains a brief of the vision wait, let me finish. It contains a brief of the vision and the passion, the philosophy of what that political party believes in. 2, it contains what, when, and I'm talking about the what in terms of the sectors. What is happening if it's about the health? What is happening at the health sector? When did these issues begin? Where did it emanate from? And then you go ahead and conclude it by how you are going to do it. Then if I take you on health, then I can make a comparison based on your manifesto. But when you make a blanket statement and you say that I am going to give free education as a point in terms of education, you haven't convinced me in any way. Let me know the problems that we are facing in terms of education in this country. Let me know where you think the problem began from. Then I appreciate, if you give me a solution, I appreciate that you know where the problem began from. And I know that because you know where the problem began from, your solution is in line with where the problem began from. But when you make a blanket statement and you say that education, I'm going to give you quality education, You haven't said anything.
I have a couple of your messages coming in on our Facebook wall. Samuel K. Amua writes that most Ghanaians vote on sentiments rather than on manifestos. To me, most people have decided already, so manifestos do not matter, especially to the educated ones. And Emmanuel Aban-Bolt also writes that most Ghanaians vote based on tribal sentiments. That's from Emmanuel. And Prince Opoku's view is that they are not able because they have failed Ghanaians with unfulfilling promises. Maybe they're afraid about the lies they're going to tell Ghanaians. I'm sure Prince is talking about the delays in the political parties publishing their manifestos. And Prince again says, I hope this time people are not going to vote on manifestos. Now it will be on assessment. Daniel Edia also says, I can say there is high illiteracy and most Ghanaians vote on sentiment. Samuel Kofi is of the view that it's time we get rid of tribes, manifestos, etc. and vote competent persons. May God save Ghana. Benjamin Kakari, you say that Ghanaians have seen that the manifestos are used mainly as tools for telling lies. Whether they are attainable or not is not what we use to judge politicians, because our development agenda are set by donors, not our incompetent authority. So other parties are trying to find a proper way of politicking Ghanaians on propaganda, just as NDC is doing. George Ofosuhini Jamra also writes that most Ghanaians vote on sentiments and not manifestos. Jacob Oku is of the view that Ghanaians no more vote on manifestos. That view is running across our messages. And Ezekiel Chiagozi says, God help the Ghanaians. Solomon Nyantechi is of the view that we should give CPP a try and see what they can do. Nana Aban Mensa. You know, the MPP and NDC are waiting for one to come out with its own before the other. This is because one of them would want to characterize on some statements made by the other party. What I guess it means is that they want to copy from each other. Chris Yao also writes that we should get a national development agenda by which we can measure the performance of each government and forget about those falsehoods and empty promises churned out in so-called manifestos. Gideon Chris Wayne Larby says, I love politics, but what they do is politricks. Bonti Benjamin, our regular contributor, says, if you live in a nation where manifesto pledges have been exchanged for judgment debts, well, this is fabrication. I cannot continue reading. Atta Samuel John says, manifestos are mere statements to convince people for their votes. We need a lot of them for years. We had, a lot of them for 4 years ago, and nothing of that sort has ever been done since they were giving the nod. I believe in motives rather than manifestos. And Lava Lacoy says, even the educated people in Ghana today vote for the sympathy of their parties. An NDC member in Aplau said on a political platform that I'm happy if my party is in power, whether they work or not, as far as there is peace. And another NDC member on another platform says that I love my party. If today they put my town and party down for me to choose, I will choose my party because I love my party. And Samuel Abebio Pascal also writes that when you take the lead to court, that does not mean you have won your case. MPP, the message is clear to all Ghanaians and they will win this year's elections. We're talking about manifestos here. And I'll jump from you to Kojo Asante. You heard the allegations, not allegations, you heard the arguments that have been put forward by Mr. Wilson that the media should take blame for the lack of depth in the political party documents presented to us as manifestos. Your reaction?
Well, yes, I think, and I like his idea, his proposal about how we can even take this matter forward in terms of, getting parties to discuss and debate and, sort of lift some of the items of the manifesto and have a real debate about, its feasibility and so on and so forth. You see, what sometimes is quite frustrating is if a government or, a political party comes into government and says, I did not know the state of the economy. I did not know. It worries me, you see, because any political party is a potential government in waiting, right? And it is so important because you're talking about 4 years. If you want to hit the ground running or any sort of you have to have those basics. I mean, when you look at the developed countries, the kind of policies they put out is so detailed and it's based on facts and figures. So that when you come, it's not going to be part of your mistake that you didn't know the situation and now you've come to know the situation, so you have to change your plan and now you are going to review this and review that and so on and so forth. So I think for me, as I said, it's important we make these manifestos more detailed. Let's be specific. Let's get political parties to make specific commitments because that is the only way we can measure whether or not they have done what they said they would do. I still think that people conceive of manifestos too narrowly. Whether it's Adenta water that you are dealing with, or Achimota water, or it's a road problem that the commitments that are being made has to be part of a broader scheme of things. If it's a service delivery that you want to improve, urban, you want to solve urban planning problems.
And so you agree with one of our viewers who says that we need a clear development agenda.
I mean, I think the national development and what the Constitutional Review Committee has proposed for me, I support that. I think that has to be there. That framework has to be there. But political parties would have to develop their programs. They have to show where the thrust is going to be for them as a political party. The MPP is talking about free secondary school. You want to get into that detail. Where is the money going to?
Exactly how much it will cost.
That's how many years is, so that you can't tell me that, well, wait till after the 4 years, then you know whether I've performed or not. I want to be sure that by your 3rd year, you are likely to perform, so that I don't waste my time that you come and waste the 4 years, and then you tell me that, well, after the 4 years, you didn't perform, so, bye-bye. I've paid you as my agent to deliver these services. You haven't delivered it, and you walk away free. And meanwhile, you've been paid for the 4 years. So I think we have to get value for money, and I think this is a good way to hold people accountable. But I think some of at least the two dominant parties, the MPP, the NDC, seem to think the manifestos, why do we have the Green Book now? Trying to catalog the manifesto promises that has been achieved. You remember in 2008, when there was a contest between the MPP about who brought the idea of a Northern Development Plan or a Savannah Plan and all of that stuff. So for me, manifestos are not the silver bullet, and it's not that the thing that will win you election. But for me, at least, it makes sure that we can start talking about issues.
Manifestos are not the silver bullet. Alistair Tyro Nelson, I'll take the final word from you briefly in 10 seconds.
Yes, I want civil society, like the IAA debate, for instance, we should up the game. The methods we have used to do these debates are not healthy at all. We can come up and challenge the presidential candidates who want to take over power and ask them, in terms of health, you say so much, how are you going to fund it? So that it will be televised, or we can have a detailed, like I'm saying, unlike the question and answer banter we have, so that you could hold the presidential candidate issue by issue on health, one-on-one. You understand? Because
Mr. Wilson.
Let us just also look at the other aspects of this winner-takes-all politics we are having in this country.
You think there should be an all-inclusive government?
It should be an all-inclusive, because if it is winner-takes-all, just like one of the testers said, I don't care whether my party is performing or not. As far as my party is in office, I am secure that I'm going to get my daily bread. I am okay that I'm going to get what I need to get. So I am voting you into office as a political party, not based on what you are going to do or what you can do, but what I can get from it. You understand? Let us also, in conclusion, let us also start taking government parties that get opportunity to rule. Let us take them by their manifestos.
Take them by their manifestos. I'm sorry, that's all time will allow us. My name is Stephen Enti, and we were discussing political party manifestos.